Hey guys, so it's Paul here. I wanted to talk a little bit about alternative formats in Yu-Gi-Oh! And some ones that I think Konami could experiment with that could be a lot of fun and make Yu-Gi-Oh! A better experience overall. So, what do I mean by alternative formats for those of you who maybe don't know? Yu-Gi-Oh! Only really has a one format that you can play in. It's called advanced format. So basically, it's what we all play. All the cards are legal, and there's like one ban list, and that's kind of it. There's not really any other officially supported way to play. Now, if you've played a game like Pokemon or Magic the Gathering, you'll know that those games have many different formats. Several of which are officially supported by the makers of the game, and then also some fan created ones that are also really popular. Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't so much have that, but lately I think I've been experimenting with a few different ways to play, and I really do think that Yu-Gi-Oh could use official support for a lot of them. So as you guys know, over the main channel, we've been doing a lot of battle pack sealed draft tournaments with battle pack 1, 2, 3. These were products that were released in 2012, 14, 15, 16. There were three different battle packs that were all released at different times, and they're designed for draft play, which basically means that each player, you can have maybe four players, and each player gets maybe 10 packs, opens a few of them at a time, picks out some cards, passes them around, repeat until you have a pool of cards that you've chosen from this pool of larger cards, and you get to make a deck. And it's designed from the ground up to be more balanced because the power level is all sort of preset, and it's a lot of fun. You kind of have to think on your feet in terms of deck building, but you can still create a specific strategy, and nobody feels like they've been completely shafted because they maybe couldn't afford the best cards or because a certain archetype is just a really, really bad matchup. So that's been a lot of fun. Another similar thing is Speed Duels, which is a format that Konami introduced, and while I feel that they definitely mismanaged it a little bit with how it was released and the advertising and the sort of local tournament support and stuff for it, Speed Duels themselves are a lot of fun, and I did enjoy them as a way to play, even if they were imperfectly implemented in the real world. So, Speed Duels are fun. It's a quick way to duel, fewer monster card zones and spells and trap card zones, fewer life points, smaller opening hand size, but also the addition of skill cards, which were a lot of fun. I think this is probably better represented in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, since it's, obviously still going on and much more popular than Speed Duels were. But yeah, something else that Yu-Gi-Oh's had in the past are the 2v2 tag duels. There's actually an official rule set for tag duels, which is pretty awesome. And basically, it's just 2v2. You and a partner sharing, I think, 16,000 life points, and just players doing a zigzag of turns. It can be a lot of fun. There's a lot of really cool strategies that you can do in a tag duel. Being able to use your partner's graveyard and field as if it's your own is really neat and opens up some cool strategies. Perhaps even it's open for abuse, but we would never really know because there's not a tournament scene or a meta game surrounding it. So eh. And those are just a few. There's also some really popular player-made ones like GOAT format. That's a very, very popular way that people like to play. It's based on some format around April 2005. I don't know the specifics because I don't really play a lot of GOAT format, but I have some friends who do. They really seem to enjoy it. It's something that you hear a lot about online, and so that's obviously really cool. People appreciate it because it feels a lot more like chess. It's a little more slow-paced, resource-based, as opposed to Yu-Gi-Oh's fast-paced nature today. So, when I think of different formats that Yu-Gi-Oh could have, those all certainly come to mind. Those would be a lot of fun. Alongside traditional format, that's a thing that Yu-Gi-Oh players of today may not have ever heard of. I should explain that real quick. It's basically the same as advanced format, but all cards that are banned are now at 1 instead of banned. And that's basically the only difference. Used to be supported as well. Used to have tournaments. Does not get tournaments anymore. Now, before I get into some of the ones that I would like to see, I do want to quickly touch on the fact that I get that Konami doesn't, it's a tough job to manage all of these formats. It's a tough job to have support for these things at local card shops. Obviously, that's not something that's going to be able to just happen, right? Konami's got to create prize support, create official rule sets, plan events just for that one format. And so when you look at it that way, well, obviously it's, sorry, I'm texting my phone. So when you look at it that way, it's obviously not going to be easy to just promote all these things. You might have to have like events dedicated to just like the one style of play. There's been like 3v3 YCSs, and those have been fun, but obviously we don't have loads of them. So I don't want to just go into this saying that like Konami should support all of these, because logistically that would be really tough, and the ones that don't get much attendance would just get weeded out anyway, and you wouldn't want that. But I do think that it would be cool if Konami maybe rotated some more of this stuff around, or I don't know, just play around with things a little bit differently. So yeah, I just want to put that out there just before people think that like we should just have it all, because obviously it's not possible to have it all. I just want to acknowledge that fact. But I will say this: we do need something, because Yu-Gi-Oh's one format is basically metagame dominated. If you're playing older decks, you won't keep up. If you're playing lower tier budget decks, you won't keep up. If you don't have a lot of kind of the newer, most modern cards, you're just gonna be in for a rough time. I don't think that that's like objectively bad, although I think a lot of people don't like it. But I just certainly feel that it would be nice if there were ways to play that maybe felt lower octane. I've always thought it'd be cool if Yu-Gi-Oh had like maybe more of like a weight class system, where we could sort of find a way to prevent the top tier decks from being played in this one isolated format, where you could just play with lower power level decks, something like a Samora deck, a Tenyi deck. Those lower rarity decks that people don't really typically. Dual Avatar, like that's a recent one. Deck that people don't commonly really play in tournaments because they're just not strong enough to compete, but that could be really fun in a vacuum against each other. You could have a lot better balance. Now that also means you have to sort of start restricting certain other cards. Something like Ash Blossom can really quickly ruin a format like that, or like evenly matched. Lightning Storm, for instance. But it could be a lot of fun, and I think that would be neat. I've also said for a long time that I think that many of the cards in those 3 archetype deck builder sets, like Infinity Chasers, Secret Slayers, recently there's Genesis Impact, all those are typically pretty well balanced. That's changed a wee bit recently, because obviously like Eldritch and Emancipator last year were a little bit higher on the power totem pole, but as archetypes just themselves, maybe not combined with certain other things, they're still about within that same power level as like a Witchcrafter and Infinitrax, Evil Eyes, Rika, those types of decks. I've always thought that those decks are really well made because they can be built out of the one pack that you buy, and so that's really neat. Some type of format that sort of isolated those and let you play with just those could be a lot of fun. And there's another one that's like really important that I always want to mention. I know Yu-Gi-Oh used to experiment with some old format. I don't remember what it was called, like a Pegasus challenge or something, where you had to use cards that were all the same rarity. So your deck could be all common or all rare or all super rare, but if you wanted to use certain secret rare cards, your whole deck had to be secret rare, which is a lot harder than it seems. And it kind of encouraged more clever deck building because no one archetype can function that way. So for instance, if you wanted to play a virtual world deck, that wouldn't fly. Some of those cards are ultras, some are supers, some are commons, so you just can't play a virtual world deck. But, some decks can sort of get by, like Tenyi, because most of their cards are rares. But still, you won't be able to use a few external cards that aren't rare. And I think that could be fun. It could be like a challenging type of deck building that could just be kind of neat to play. There's also generational duels, which is something that was officially supported at a time, where it was like, okay, only Duel Monsters era decks, or only GX era decks, or only 5Ds era decks with a specific ban list to go with it. That could be a lot of fun. I should also probably mention all of these would probably need their own individual ban lists. So when you factor that in, I get that it could get logistically pretty crazy, because some formats will make certain cards pretty broken and OP and stuff, and they'd have to be sort of handled in their own ban lists. So I'm not saying that these alternate formats would be perfect solutions to anything. I think that they would give people a way to play, a way to relax. It's logistically tough, yes, but I think that a lot of people just want a way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! That doesn't feel as, like you go first, you do a 10-minute combo, you lock your opponent out with a bunch of negates. It could be fun to do it another way where there's just not as much going on. The duels can last longer. You can grind more. There's more like back and forth, and there's more strategy and deck building styles, for instance. And then the big one that everybody likes to talk about is basically a rotation format. This is called a number of different things. I've heard it called like block format or whatever, but basically cards get rotated out after like 2 years. So this could be a great way of sort of balancing stuff out, because a card that releases today, like let's say Triple Tactics Talent and like Forbidden Droplets, Nadir Servant, these cards from Rise of the Duelist. Basically, in 2 years, these cards would just be automatically rotated out, so you can use them in this format of legal play. A lot of people don't like that because it means like you're sort of forced to run the treadmill and always buy new cards, but it does help Konami better balance things. Because then a card like Jet Synchron, for instance, wouldn't have been abused by something like Crystron Halki Fibrax because Jet Synchron would have already been rotated out. But certain cards can still stay in rotation as long as Konami prints new copies of them. So you can still keep something like Twin Twisters or Cosmic Cyclone, just, basic staples in the game, but you can get really specific abusable cards out of the game so that they aren't abused later. It's not a perfect system for Yu-Gi-Oh! It certainly would have its rough edges and things to overcome, but it's something that I would really like Konami to experiment with, and I'm totally open for. So, all in all, I think that I would like to see alternative formats exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! I think they would be a lot of fun to see. I think they would give people a way to relax and enjoy the game in different ways. They would be very logistically tough to manage, and it's just hard to sort of communicate how the rules would work to people. But maybe it could just sort of be a thing where over time, survival of the fittest. Maybe the ones that do best stick around, the ones that don't, you can still continue them with your friends, but Konami might not support them. It'd be fun. I hope to see more of it. I hope Konami makes another battle pack. I hope that they could do like a 2v2 tournament. All that stuff would be fantastic to me. Anyways, I feel like I've gone on long enough here. So yeah, let me know down in the comments, what do you guys think? What types of alternative formats would you like to see in Yu-Gi-Oh? How do you think it would be the best way for Konami to manage said formats? Which ones would you play, and which ones do you think would just go to the wayside? And what would be the problems with them? Sound off down there. Thought this was fun. Anyways, check out some of my other videos where I've talked about similar things. See you guys in the next one. Pass turn.